Right, good morning. Coming to you live from our studios here, number 40 Swanika Street in Abilingpe. This is the newspaper review segment of Good Morning Africa. This show is also live across some 46 other African countries via satellites in some parts of Europe and South America. Many thanks for joining. I'll employ you to be a part of the conversation. We are live on Facebook. We are at facebook.com/Pan-African Television. Make sure you send in your messages, your thoughts, your opinions. I'll be more than glad to read them. Also, you can see on your screens that the text lines have been displayed. Make sure you do well to send in your messages via text as well. And let me also remind you that this show is proudly sponsored by Mont Natural Mineral Water. You can walk into any supermarket in Accra. You grab some for yourself. It's environmentally friendly as well, and of course it comes cheap as well. It's not so expensive, so make sure you do well to get some. The number to call though, 0599044409. These are the numbers to call if you want to purchase Mont Natural Mineral Water in bulk. Right, now before I introduce my guest, let's get into the topics that we'll be discussing for the morning. As typical of Pan-African Television, we start our morning conversations with happenings on the African continent. We will be going back to Niger because it is understood that France has withdrawn its troops. Also, the French ambassador to Niger has also been withdrawn by the French government. Then we'll look at stories in relation to the resignation of Alan Kyerematen, former Trades and Industry Minister. There are a lot of issues that have come out of his resignation. Remember, on Monday, 25th September, at the Movenpick Ambassadors Hotel, he told the whole world that he has resigned from the New Patriotic Party to pursue other political ambitions, which political ambition has to do with becoming president of the country. Now, he has formed what he refers to as a movement for change, and of course, that would see him contest the 2024 general elections as an independent candidate. One of the papers has also reported the mass exodus of Ghanaian nurses to overseas, ostensibly to seek greener pastures. So these topics we shall be discussing on the morning show today, and as I earlier intimated, be a part of the conversation. I've been joined this morning by the distinguished Honorable Inusah Fuseini, former Member of Parliament for the good people of Tamale Central, also former Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. It is always a pleasure to be in his company, storied company for that matter. Good morning, Honorable, and many thanks for always making time to join us every Thursday.
Good morning, Bless. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Great. Elvis Banoemuleng is a former Deputy National Organizer of the ruling New Patriotic Party. Last week he wasn't here, but he rejoins the show. Oh, you were here?
No, for some weeks now.
Exactly. For
about 3 weeks.
For about 3 weeks now, he's been absent, but I know you lot miss him, and of course I do too personally, and I'm sure that we are all going to enjoy the conversations that we'll be having on the show this morning. Elvis, good morning.
Yes, sir, boss. Hope you are good.
I'm very well. The
Apollo is gone. Happy birthday to you.
Belated.
Apollo catch you.
He catch you.
He catch you too.
He catch Kwame too.
Charlie, Apollo did the system.
Wow.
For my case, he can't turn matter give me. But Charlie, we the manage. How the birthday go?
Oh, I will go do one. It was normal. It was okay. It was okay. Without further ado, let's start the conversation. And like earlier intimated, we always start our conversations with happenings on the African continent. We are going back to Niger, where there has been a coup d'etat, we know, for some months now. The Junta leader Abdurrahman Chiani, who ousted Mohamed Bazoum, he's been making moves. And that includes dispatching the French military forces that were stationed there to fight, quote unquote, Islamist insurgents and all of these terrorist attacks. The Nigerian people are not happy with the sort of work that the French troops have done, and so the junta leader, Abdurrahman Chiani, he has asked them to leave, and of course, France has done the needful. They have withdrawn him, withdrawn them, as well as the French ambassador to Niger. I'll start with Honorable Inusah with this particular conversation.
So let me say good morning to you, Bless, and to my nephew. I've just learned that his father taught him my school, in my secondary school, early secondary school, and it's more likely that his father taught me English while I was at the local secondary school, because the period which he says his father was at the local secondary school coincides with the period that I was there as a student. So you see why I have taken to you, because your father was part of the persons who made me. Now, and to say good morning to you, last week we missed you, but I'm happy that you are back on set. Now, before I start anything at all, let me convey this message. As I was driving here, around the Achimota traffic lights, just the one at Shell, just by the Shell, two policemen were there controlling traffic. They stopped the vehicles for me to pass, but before I passed, they said I should deliver this message on set. They knew I was coming here. That the traffic light has been out of operation for some time now. And that place is an accident site. People are losing their lives because of the unavailability of that mechanism to direct traffic. And he says, I mean, they don't understand why it's taking the Ministry of Roads and Highways that long time to fix a simple device like a traffic light to restore order at that point. And so I promise that I will deliver it, and you will bear witness to the fact that I have delivered the message. I'm not sure they are watching me, but clearly I have delivered their message. Ministry of Roads and Highways, the Achimota traffic light just by Shell is inoperative for a very long time now.
Honorable, I won't cut you, but the issues relating to dysfunctional traffic lights in the capital is a worry.
I was just typing a litany of them to read them.
There's just at Abofuye for about 3 years, 3 good years, that traffic light has not been working. If you go to Trade Fair, the road that links to Pamwan Junction, after the traffic light over there for the past 3 years also has not been working. So I think the statistics says that about nearly 70% of the traffic lights in Accra
do
not work. I don't know why.
Well, that should tell you the state of our
our
governance. It means that nothing is working. Nothing is working. I mean, if you can't fix traffic lights, then I don't know what you can fix. Now, and to say good morning to our cherished viewers, it's always a pleasure to be here on Thursdays. And if Mr. Kwesi Pratt is watching us in faraway China, to say we miss him, we wish him back safely. What is happening in Niger doesn't come to me as a surprise at all. Now, this flows from the initial condemnation of the military uprising by Macron, who sought to play a fatherly figure over the people of Niger. It still was the colonial master who thought that his wishes must be law in Niger. He had condemned the coup and called them illegitimate. And said his country, France, and his government will not recognize the military government, and that Mohamed Bazoum, the deposed president, was the otherwise legitimate president of Niger, and that he challenged the authority of the military junta to order the expulsion of the French ambassador, since they didn't have authority, legitimate authority, so to do. So that was the basis of the standoff. And I mean, everyone knows that they might not have the jury authority, but they have de facto authority. they are in charge now. They are in charge, and so because they are de facto authority over Niger, you cannot treat their call for the withdrawal of the French ambassador lightly at all. And so yesterday, the French ambassador was withdrawn, and then as we speak, he is safely in France. Indeed, matters came to head when the Macron realized that there was no way that the French ambassador could continue to be in Niger because he had taken refuge at the French military camp and was eating the rations. They had blocked any access. The Nigerian authorities had blocked any access to and from the military camp. After the embassy, officials there could no longer camp out. It was almost like a siege of the embassy, and people camped there day and night, ensuring that or calling for the removal of the ambassador to Niger. And the French authorities were saying, yes, I think that we have to remove him because even as we speak, he's sharing in the military rations. He's no longer being fed the way he wants to feed himself. Macron has also said by the end of 2023, yes, in 2 or 3 months' time, he will withdraw the French forces. And listen to what the military junta, the statement they issued. And it's important that all of us know what is happening. They said, we celebrate another step towards Niger's sovereignty. Any person, institution, or structure whose presence threatens the interest and outlook of our country will have to leave the land of our ancestors, whether they like it or not. This is the statement of the military junta. So clearly, they have taken a stance that if you have overstayed your welcome in Niger, you will leave. And you will leave because the land is the land of their ancestors. And you will leave whether you like it or not. France diplomatically did not play the issue very well. It sought to portray itself as the patriarchal leader of Niger. I mean, it's the policies of France that have impoverished Niger. It's their policies. I mean, because Niger is not that poor.
Yeah.
It has got resources. Just like Niger is in Africa, and Africa is the most resource-rich continent on the planet. But Africa contains some of the poorest nations on earth because of foreign exploitative policies. Why do I say so? Niger has uranium and many other minerals that we don't know of because they do the prospecting, they do the geological surveys, they do the area surveys, and they know which mineral resources Niger have now. And that's why they are hesitant in leaving the country, because they have planned the exploitation of these resources for a very long time. Now, and when they take the resources from the ground in Niger, they return virtually nothing to the people of Niger, virtually nothing. And even the little that they return, they call it assistance. They say they are assisting the people of Niger. You rob the people, and what they are due, you don't give them. And the little that you give them, you even call it assistance. And that, so the people must be grateful that you are returning that little to them. Over the weekend, I was watching a video in which a young man, Soko or who was saying that, well, France has to learn from its other neighbors, European neighbors. And he cited Germany and Italy. I mean, this is exploitative nature. This is a relationship, symbiotic relationship, where you are feeding on the people, and you are feeding them dry. Must stop. I mean, it must stop. Why is it that we as a people, they don't leave us to manage our own affairs like Nkrumah said? We must be prepared to make mistakes and learn from our mistakes. They must leave us alone. Today, our governments are being propped up by these foreign governments because of their own selfish idiosyncratic interests. You know, governments are stealing us dry and keeping the monies that they have stolen with them. And they know, but they say almost nothing. And so clearly, the relationship between Africa and its colonial masters, and in the words of Kwesi Pratt, Western metropolitan states, must change. The equation must balance in favor of Africa, because we must be, Africa is definitely for Africans, just like Europe is for Europeans. We must be in charge of our own destinies. Yes, the balkanization of Africa is making it difficult for Africa to grow, because they have made us and constituted us into less viable states. They have carved out tribes and nations by artificial boundaries. And they did that because they didn't want Africa to thrive. They thought that Africa was a piece of cake that they were dividing amongst themselves. In fact, the wrongs that have been done us as a people are so enormous that no amount of compensation can rub off the pain and hurt that these European metropolitan cities or states had done to Africa. I think there's a new reawakening. People are beginning to feel that the relationship between Africa and these colonial masters must change. That Africa, the new independence of Africa must start now. That even our leaders who are democratically elected, if they feel, refuse, or neglect to do things in the interest of the state, but are pursuing the interests of colonial masters or other foreign powers, people, the citizens of the country, have a right to vote them out or to remove them from power. And so clearly this new awakening is spreading across Africa, except that we are not using democratic means to do that. We are using military means to do that. And in areas, in places where that has succeeded, there have been a combination of reasons. Just look at Omar Bongo, rich Gabon. The whole wealth of Gabon concentrated within the family. Yesterday I was reading about Bongo's daughters who met Bob Marley and had said that he should come to Gabon and perform. And all those things clearly were, their father had bought a house for them in Beverly Hills in the United States of America, and they were living there. Even that time, in the time of Bob Marley, they were already living lavishly, and the people of Bongo were suffering. So indeed, there must be a new reawakening in Africa, and we must take our own destiny into our own hands.
Right. Thank you very much. Elvis Botah.
Yes, it's a very annoying development, but let me say very good morning to my uncle and congratulate him and his alma mater, the Nalergu Senior High School, to which I have indirect linkages. In fact, apart from the many things he said, I also know that my first two senior siblings had the benefit of this particular institution. Right. And for us, such schools in the north, you know, who stood up against the tides of nature to educate people, even in those days, and to be able to produce brains, and astute brains, to some extent, considering the level of knowledge and professionalism of people like my uncle and the many others I know this school have produced. Some of them have gone beyond individuals. They have grown into full institutions by themselves to learn from. We wish the great Nalergu Senior High School well in its future endeavors. And we hope Pan-Africa will grow in the media landscape as an institution that will marshal equal price as schools such as Nalergu, and of course the entire Gambaga area, which was noted for an education hub in the northern sector, will continue to thrive. Now, the most important thing about education is for the knowledge acquired thereof to be deployed in the attainment of good governance, good national leadership in any sphere you find yourself, so as to be able to translate same into, development for your country. And for me, that is what we have missed so far. You have a continent where people who were privileged from good homes to attend the finest schools, maybe to draw really closer patterns with Ghana, it has been proven over time that those who attended the Achemotes and the so-called big name schools and have had the opportunity to govern this country so far have not really done well. Maybe we should consider people from the Lagos Secondary School and see what can happen. So if you have a country like Niger and you have Africa generally with these kind of bad stories, it is important this morning then for us to go to the historical antecedents of why some of this nonsense continues to happen in Africa. You see, the biggest of all of these things, okay, took shape and form in illegality from the scramble of Africa. In the period of 1833 to about 1914, which marked a period of intense exploitation of our continent under the invasion, division of Africa and its resource endowment by European countries, is the basis for why all of these things are happening within even contemporary international economic order. In 1833, Europe only controlled about 10% of Africa's landscape. And their interest was just coastal Africa, with Angola and Mozambique being the major holes. Now, scaling up their agenda, by 1914, Europeans have succeeded in taking over 90% of the African continent, with only Ethiopia and Liberia, I think, remaining independent. Every other country was besieged under what historians will usually term new imperialism. Somewhere along the line, Bless, in 1884, where the unpopular and infamous Berlin Conference, am I correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Happened. That Berlin Conference was just for Europe to say that, look, let us stop fighting each other and competing unfavorably and unhealthily in Africa. Since they are a group of stupid people, excuse my word, but this way they are thinking. Since they are a group of naive and stupid elements, well, whose leaders and chiefs we can control, let us jump in there in a spirit of unity and peacefully divide the place amongst ourselves. So, the aftermath of that conference and its negative dividends gained by countries in Europe, including some of the poorest countries in Europe, poor countries like Portugal, had its share in controlling resources in Africa. Another country with bad records, both in history, economically, and in war, is Spain. You remember the War of Spanish Succession, 1701 to 1714. Yet, in their inability to unite to solve royal and monarch issues, even in Spain, had their share in Africa. Why? Because the conference made it possible that every European country, no matter how insignificant it was, will have a share of Africa's resources and to exercise dominance over say. That was when all these artificial borders were recreated and a sense of divisive identity allotted to Africans so that we are no longer each other's keepers. They proceeded to attack our spiritual fiber, stole everything, and not only resources. The point must be made that these elements actually even stole our religious and traditional spiritual artifacts to Europe. I have had the benefit of several museums in Europe, and you will find that 98% of the artifacts there are ours, and they were stolen. In some cases, including ordinary cowries. Yes, ordinary cowries. They have stolen cowries from us, and they have kept them in their museums. What does these people want us to talk again about them? So this was it. So that negative attitude and that impunity exercised from 1884 in that kind of a foolish conference Europeans decided to hold gave them a sense of false entitlement to anything good in Africa. And like my uncle said, they now come and take your money, go and keep it, take your resources, goes to keep it, come back with a token of it and tell you it is an aid. You have stolen from me. Let's be blunt to tell Europeans they are thieves. You have stolen from me, and you come and tell me you are giving me aid from what you have stolen from me, and you call it international economic order. So clearly, this is where the whole issue is coming from, and it is that new imperialism that these people are still pursuing. Now, let us go back to the hypocrisy of they themselves and the principles they have set. Sometime before the scramble over Africa, Europe recorded in history the numerous and most dangerous type of wars and conflict. In fact, I am still very sure that no continent under the sun have had battles and wars compared to that which was fought by the Europeans, even though they make it look as if Africans are quarrelsome. What Africa is going through now does not constitute a tip of the iceberg of the kind of conflicts Europe fought, including the War of Roses and the Napoleonic Wars and all those useless wars they actually fought among themselves. They only became wise, bless, in 1648 when they decided to hold a conference which they later called the Conference of Peace. And students of international relations will appreciate it as the Westphalian Treaty. That was where they decided to sign on to peace and to characterize certain features that should be respected, and if those were respected, will automatically inure to peaceful coexistence and mutual respect. What were they? One, that, look, there should be territorial demarcations, and where there is a defined territorial demarcation, it should have a defined population, and where there is a defined population, the people must exercise sovereignty by way of determining the government that must lead them. Those things I have just mentioned have come together to define what we call a state. So for any particular geographic location to be called a state, it must have met these conditions, and in the list of it then have some international recognition from other already established states. They were wise enough to do this for themselves. Yet, 200 years down the line, they ran to come and cause division in Africa without now respecting the very features they created in the Westphalian model of state, which now exists in Africa, where we have defined boundaries, defined populations, our territories, our sovereignty, and a defined population of people and their government. They now don't want to respect that one. Meanwhile, in 1648, they agreed that when these structures are in place, they must then only extend hands of solidarity and diplomatic friendship to each other without any country having legitimacy to interfere in the border affairs of another country. Else, it will call for defense, international defense, or national security interest in the nature of, armed defense. Why are they treating Africa and intruding into our borders and trying to control our governments with impunity? Then in 1961, to pretend to want to create sanity in the world, even though the sanity was meant to protect their interests, they came up with the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations to grant several immunity, including the inability to arrest people within diplomatic circles, no matter what they do, stringent international legal requirements needed to be able to deal with such people. And Africans ran again to sign the Vienna Convention. And who benefits? Till date, you cannot walk anyhow even on the streets of London without police harassing you to know the legitimacy of your immigration documents. But you see them walking about here. And our police, because of the sense of inferiority complex we have, our police, our institutions, and even our politicians are so quick to postulate and to bow down to anybody with a pink nose, a long nose and pink eyes, who is called a white. Where is this nonsense from? So the kind of example happening not only in Niger, but also in Burkina Faso, Mali, Ivory Coast, okay, are anti-French sentiments. They are anti-French sentiments. The people are simply fed up that in the 1884 Berlin Conference, French was the beneficiary of these colonies. The people are now fed up with their disrespect and impunity and their punishment to them, and they are saying that, look, we are defining a new order for ourselves. It may contradict the international political order, but we are taking our destiny into our own hands. There are certain new rules. If you want our uranium now, we are not saying we won't give you, but you come. Forget diplomacy, we'll give you the prizes we want to give you. Now, France arrogantly, rather than try to use diplomatic means to polish an already sour relationship with its former colonies, have decided to remain arrogant. Very typical of Europeans anyway. They are so arrogant, they think they are better than anybody who is black. Any poor white man in Africa is hailed as a better person. Meanwhile, most of them are suffering. In some cases, apart from state social services, some of them can pay their rent. Are you getting what I'm talking about? We've had the benefit of living in flats with some of them. And I can tell you, they are very poor white men. But what do we see? So with these things happening, they are anti-French sentiments. And I encourage Niger and other colonies to even do more and worse. And actually encourage the rest of Africa to define democracy in our own terms. Defy the negatives of globalization. This whole system of neoliberal tendencies created by them is to be able to weigh down on us. After taking these monies, they came out with the principle of the dollarization. You must now trade, it doesn't matter what your currency is, you must now trade in dollar, so that they keep accumulating, foreign exchange and having a stronger dollar, so you will always have to borrow more to add in order to catch up with the strength of the dollar to purchase what you need. You know what that is? After they make profits from this, they decide to go and keep it in a fund. In your quest for more money to add to your domestic currency, to be able to match up the strength of the dollar to have international procurements, you can go to that fund to take money. That fund is called IMF, where Ghana have shamefully arrived for the 19th time under President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. We have arrived there. So you see how these people have created a system of economic structuralism that puts Africa into vicious cycle of indebtedness. And yet our leaders are still so foolish to the extent that after reading all the books, we cannot now sit down and practicalize what we learn in school to defend our own interest. We talk about scholarship because we must learn to be able to influence policy that has positive impacts on development, socio-economically. Now, look at this country. Those in the ruling class, the national institutions we have established to help intelligent people have good education to influence policy and principles of state are only benefited by people in power. Go and conduct your scrutiny. You even realize that ministers of state have had the benefit of Get Fund and Ghana Scholarship Secretariat to run to Europe and go and learn. Meanwhile, the man has been given a free bungalow, a free car, free fuel. These ministers don't even pay light bills. Yet their children are the ones who get Fund and Ghana Scholarship Secretariat assistance to go and study. And after that, they remain there. Their fathers will steal more and keep more. And when they are dying off, they will promote them into political offices to come and continue. So that mafia tactics is the Achilles heels of Africa. Not only the Berlin Conference, but this is how Europeans have hoodwinked us and have brainwashed us and have indoctrinated us with a sense of inferiority. And most importantly, with the poison of dubiousness. The African man, when you hear an African man is intelligent, his intelligence is only to the extent to which he has been able to smartly dupe his brother and to put him to the disadvantage. And that has become the flagship program of all our African governments. Their ability to amass wealth, impoverish the rest of society, just as the colonialists did to us. You see, this was why it was important for us to have an amalgamated security community. Economic security, social security, you know, and of course, development aspiration. This is what Nkrumah and the founding fathers of Africa were crying about. Years after they brought us the Lincolnian idea of democracy, how has it been able to help us? It hasn't. And so people need to create alternative ways of also making their share. Why won't we have terrorist organizations and the illegal proliferation of arms in order to control and capture resources for the purposes of benefit, because we can no longer trust the state to guarantee livelihoods and fundamental security. So these are the issues. Niger should keep it up, even in the Anglophone countries like Ghana, Gambia. I think that we need same. We need to tell the neo-colonialists that, look, again, we can handle our own affairs. You leave us in peace. We need to be able to do so. We need to be able to set the record straight and to define the principles of business and trade engagement relative to our resources. If they can't come and agree with us on our principles of trade, they should leave their resources here. No problem. They won't rot. Gold doesn't rot. Look, on a daily basis, aircraft that move out of Ghana with gold and other mineral resources is not a joke. You ask the immigration and the SEPS officers and they'll tell you. It's not a joke. Huge monies in billions of dollars. And you arrive at IMF for, how much did we go for? Only to be given, even that one comes like 600. I mean, in trenches. It doesn't make sense. If Europeans could gather in 1648 to take decisions about their welfare, why can't African leaders gather to do so? If the same European leaders could gather in 1884 in Berlin to destroy us, why can't we gather in 2023 to also take decisions in our interest? The rest of the world should pursue us for it. Why? But you know what? Most of our presidents actually go for funding from European countries and European multinational corporations to come and campaign to be presidents. And they promise them ahead of time that, oh, for me, once you help me win, you can come and do what you want to do. This is the problem we have. We need a national leader. We need a national leader who can be an authoritarian against the West and against Europe. I'm telling you, a total authoritarian who can be a dictator to the West and to the Europeans. They cannot continue to be wise. They are killing us anyway, so if we've got to fight, if we've got to revolt, we've got to jump on the streets and die there, it's still the same as they killing us softly. If we are killing ourselves with violent harshly, it's still the same as these people killing us softly and killing our generations. and influencing the kind of packaged food we eat and what that means for our genetic makeup and what the African will look like in the next 100 years. That is what they are doing to us. They are killing us. So why don't we do some of these things and die anyway? After all die be die. I don't want to plagiarize. The reference is Nana Dodako Akufo-Addo, 2008. I've reference. So you see, these are the issues. And for me, I think that the Ghanaian youth in particular must be sensitive. Look at the things happening. Look at the demonstrations that have been happening in the Fourth Republican place. Do you know that all they need now are numbers and anger to turn these demonstrations into something else? If the police can allow themselves to be manipulated by politicians to distract demonstrations which are constitutional rights. Anytime there is to be a demonstration, Ghana Police Service will misbehave. And we didn't get notice, and we didn't get this, and we didn't allow it. The rule and the position of law does not even require you to take permission from the police to demonstrate. You just have to serve notice. Just notify them. You don't need their permission. There is a judgment on this whole issue of even placing injunctions on demonstrations by the police. About 10 years down the line, they don't respect that ruling. And also, these are the things that feed into civilians rising up and doing things. The only thing saving Ghana from these kind of things and attempted coups are because our military in itself, I suspect from, and I want to believe the speculation of majority of people, have become extremely political. If you go amongst them, they know whom NPP generals are and who is an NDC general. This is the only reason. It's not as if Ghana is peaceful. These are the only things. Go to the police headquarters. They know themselves. In the recent probe, COP Alex Mensah, am I correct with the name? Alluded to that fact. That is the game they play over there. Yes. So at any point in time, with any government in power, they do quick promotions to have some higher rank officers, and the strategy is to stop these things from happening. And during recruitment, the slots are given to politicians to send their boys in. So it becomes difficult for lower ranks and junior ranks to get up and say that, okay, we want to revolt against the government, because majority of them have their uniforms from the same government. But there is a day they will come together and say that enough of this, our people, let's deal with them. Why can't we be preventive and proactive enough to stop some of these things? And when you come and talk about it, they say you don't respect. I have had the badge of honor of being an arrogant, disrespectful person in politics, simply because I speak truth to power. Right from my constituency to National Executive Committee and to National Council, Botah have never been afraid to speak truth to power. I make my point and I debate it and I argue it. If you have a superior argument, you do it. So just go to my constituency. You will find my own council of elders who will tell you, as humble as I am, they will tell you Botah is arrogant. Why? When they think we should sit inside the room and the little resources for the party meant to advance the politics of the constituency party, and Botah says, no, you won't spend this. We are not sharing this. It has to go to the grassroots. They must demonize you. But that is the mafioso in politics, in our security sector, and everywhere. Yeah. God save Africa. But I think we should keep fighting.
Right. Thank you very much, Elvis Botah. Before I proceed, though, let me state that the Disability Excellence Awards is coming up. And so if you know someone who has any form of disability but is doing so well, nominations are open. There are a lot of categories that people would be awarded for. Extraordinary Disability Achiever in journalism, also Extraordinary Disability Achiever in sports. There's the Extraordinary Disability Achiever in entrepreneurship, Excellence in Social Participation Award, Excellence in Media Personality Advocacy Award, Best Disability Reporting Station, Excellence in Employment Opportunity Awards, Excellence in Education Award, Excellence in Disability Training Award. There are a number of them. There are about 14 categories, and how to nominate someone. Just select your preferred category or categories, add the personal information of the nominee, that is the name, address, and occupation, add their contact details, attach an evidence of the nominee's work, submit your nomination via the email address Ghana Disability Awards 2021 at gmail.com, or alternatively you can call 027-430-9099, 027-430-9099. The Ghana Disability Excellence Awards is powered by Fund Ghana in collaboration with GFDO. Right. I see lots of you sending us messages in relation to the topic we are discussing, our African story for that matter, issues relating to Niger, for the very fact that the French President Macron, he has withdrawn French troops, despite the fact that initially when the coup happened, he said he wasn't recognizing, or there was no way he was going to recognize the junta leaders, Abdul Rahmani Chiani as the leader of Niger, and so Mohamed Bazoum, in his estimation, is still the president. But I think he has submitted to the pressures of Niger and has withdrawn the troops. Let me read a few of your messages. Emmanuel Dazi says, this guy Botah is a great leader. Newton Anew says, they are killing us through our foods because the salt and oil added to, well, right, I'm not going to destroy anybody's business. Comensa Pilatu says, no matter what Alan Kyerematen does, inshallah, Dr. Bawumia will break the 8 simple. Regards to Honorable Nino, incoming MP for Colonial constituency. Okay, this name is in Arabic, so I can't read it, but you're saying, wow, Elvis Botah, you are doing great. This is the truth that leaders need to hear. Alidu Abdul Rashid Wumpini says, good morning to you all in the studio. I think it's now time for we the Africans to stand tall in fighting for what belongs to us. We should not be silent when we are not comfortable. Right, thank you so much. We'll proceed to our next topic, but in joining Honorable Inusah and then of course Elvis Botah, let me also talk a little bit about the Naleregu Gambaga Enclave, which is a hub, which is an educational hub. I know that the Naleregu Nursing Training institution is there. We also have the Gambaga Teacher Training College. There are a lot of schools, especially in that enclave, and I very much understand when they say that it is an.
I was born in Gambaga.
Oh,
yes,
great. And special greetings to my people in Dagbere Buari. I hear you people watch us a lot. We are extremely grateful. We'll proceed to our next topic. It has got to do with the former Trade and Industry Minister. On Monday, 25th September, he tendered in his resignation, and of course, he's no longer with the New Patriotic Party, and he is pursuing his political ambitions. He wants to become president of the country. He did not participate in or he's not going to participate in the MPP's November 4 primaries. And so the movement for change, he calls it, is up and running, and he's going to contest the 2024 elections as an independent candidate. Since he left the party, though, the past few days he's been in the he's been in the media space, and he's been speaking a lot. I've heard people say that they didn't know Alan Kyerematen could actually talk that much. He's been firing salvos, even at his own party, his former party, I would say, the MPP. This morning, I'm reading some of the newspapers where he's accusing the finance minister for Ghana's economic woes, and he is saying that he'll run government of national unity as president. Elvis, I'm going to start with you on this topic because, of course, you're a member of the New Patriotic Party. How do you find this resignation of Alan Kyerematen from the party?
First of all, political association is voluntary, and so political dissociation must equally be voluntary. So if Mr. Alan Kyerematen voluntarily joined the NPP and got despondent and disappointed and disgruntled and have come to the conclusion that dissociating from the party is the way to appease his personal aspirations, so be it. In politics, there is first of all a personal interest, then a political interest at the organizational level, where your interest is aligned with the interest of your political organization and of course the political project of your party. Then we have national interest. Then we have international interest. These are the four-dimensional interests in politics. And at every stage of any of these interests lies the political bit and the business development bit of it. This is what controls the conscience of every politician. So you cannot separate a man from his inherent desires tied to interest and pursued as such. Mr. Alan Kyerematen have been undoubtedly a leading member of our party, and not only a leading member, a founding member. Let me put on record that this man had single-handedly at the inception of the party been the biggest contributor and mobilizer of finances for the political project of the New Patriotic Party. Nobody can debate it anywhere in our party. As a matter of fact, with his young executive forum, he mobilized the international community, people in trade, to finance NPP into government. These are the unspoken truth. In fact, because of these contributions, the party insisted he becomes running, how do you call it, presidential candidate. Okay, then he would have been the first presidential candidate in the New Patriotic Party. But he was too young, and he paid heed to advice and said no. That brought Professor Edu Boahen as flag bearer of the NPP in the 92 elections. And Alan Kyerematen bought the first pickup. I'm telling you, he bought the first pickup for the campaigning of Professor Edu Boahen. Traveled and journeyed into his 2007 contest. And I'm saying this because people think he was just Kufuor's darling boy who only showed up during Kufuor's administration. No. 2007's primaries, we had issues, and he and Akufo-Addo became the frontliners. And none of them made the required percentage to be flag bearer of the party. But he gave it up to Nana Akufo-Addo. So there is a viral video where Nana, in appreciation, says, "Thank you so much for what you have done to keep the unity of the party. I know in this I shall be president. But when I become president and leave, you will follow." It is not casted in rocks that it should be so. These are political conversations. But I'm trying to elucidate to the effect that Mr. Alan Kyerematen is not just a mere person. And so MPP should be ashamed that we have failed to manage the emotions of such a person with this kind of a profile well and to allow him exit. It's wrong for us, especially at a time we have practically failed in our economic management to the disadvantage of Ghanaians and to their annoyance. The least we should do is to compromise the unity of the party. What at all is the issue that we couldn't have solved? Because there were early warning signs from Alan. We could have managed the situation. So he's a human being. He's got blood in him. You see, a lot of people are feeling that, so this man talks. He talks. But he's just a strategic person who believes in the golden nature of silence. But he talks. If you're closer to Alan, he talks. You know, so why should we, this whole mafia thing we're talking about, when you do this, and you watch it, there are a lot of Alans who have long resigned in their minds from the NPP. Are you getting what I'm talking about? There are a lot of people who are disappointed. They've not written any letter, they've not addressed any media, but within themselves, psychologically, emotionally, physically, and in fact spiritually, they have resigned from the NPP. And for me, that should be a source of worry to us as a political party.
Are you one of them?
No, I'm not one of them. I will remain in the NPP and speak the truth. I'll never resign. Resign to where? Where we all got power. We all speak truth to power. I believe in staying in and speaking. When you speak the truth indoors and they don't hear you, please come and say it outside. So that at least it will be on public records that you have refused to be part of the meandering. So you see, these are the issues. Now, if we were to be minded and to learn from history, you realize that this thing happened to us in 59 and in other elections when Victor Owusu and co had this similar thing and went their separate ways. And we lost elections. Yes, it is true that, and I think that Mr. Kyerematen in all of this shouldn't have resigned anyway. I am against the resignation. I think he should have just remained quiet, strategically silent, and that alone would have had an effect equivalent to what probably he wants to achieve as an independent candidate. But people are ridiculing him, saying he won't make anything. The issue is that his victory might not be to go to Jubilee House. His victory might be to see that Bawumia doesn't win. Who knows whom he will be able to pull to his side. And if he is taking this decision against the backdrop of being disgruntled from electoral issues, what happens if Ken joins him? If similar things are not addressed? What happens if the others contesting decide to go same way if these kind of issues are not given any proper redress? So you see, these are critical things as a political organization maturing. These are things we should have been able to handle. We couldn't handle a Foucault's issue well some 10 years ago. And that cost us as a party. Even though we won the 2016 election, I tell you, the Afoko issue have had a serious impact on the progress of the NPP. Why should this repeat itself? Does that mean at a critical stage we cannot represent Ghana and solving important problems? Is that what it is meaning? Integrity issues comes in. So the party should have learned from our history. And this is not time for Facebook jubilations. I repeat, I am against Mr. Kyerematen's resignation. I'm not happy about it. And I'm against his independence bid. He's my friend, but I don't support him. I will support the cause of the NPP. Are you getting it? I'm against it. But there are important lessons there to learn as a party. And this whole tactics that gets people angry at in this presidential elections to go off, similar things are happening in constituency primaries. Similar things are happening in constituency primaries. So you watch and see the number of people who will go independent after our primaries in anger against the system, and how elections are managed, and how Jubilee House is busy trying to get their favorites into places. This is the problem with the NPP. We managed to get power and we forgot of the unity we had to make that power. No, Mr. Kyerematen's recent history with us is bad for the party. It's bad for our integrity. He will have nothing to lose. So he knows he won't be president, but I believe and suspect he has a different motive. His definition of victory actually means the defeat of Bawumia should he emerge
as flag bearer.
As flag bearer.
Right.
So when we do these things, at the end of the day, it is the flag, it is the grassroots that suffers. Remember, Bwacha Jacko had already left, even though he garnered that level of intelligence emotionally, not to resign and not to go independent.
Yeah.
Now, what at all is the enterprise, okay, in a certain candidate that the establishment think that that candidate must necessarily emerge? What is the enterprise, the political enterprise in Bawumia, that every system must be defied to have Bawumia lead this party as flag bearer? I believe Bawumia have the substance to be able to win a credible, primaries. If that is correct, the projections core proponents of him are making, if that is correct, why are we actually doing all of these manipulations and intimidatory tactics, okay, and in some case outright bribery and buying out of people from other camps. Why must that huge expenditure be made? The young man is intelligent and credible, so let him carry that as his trump card to go and win the thing. I would have been happy to have Uncle Bawumia emerge after a more competitive elections and defy all us and say that, look, I am the Bawumia of the time and I have won it. But with some of these things that are happening, it will tarnish his integrity in the entire process, and that will have an effect on us in the general elections. At the time, he has failed in managing the economy well, which has been our biggest bargain chip about Bawumia on the table. So now we want to drag his political character into disrepute. So how are we going to actually amalgamate these two to make sense, reconcile them properly to win elections? Considering the level of desperation of Mr. Mahama, and the fact that he is fortunate to have credible men like my uncle who are leading him. You know what that means for the NPP in 2024? It means we can lose. Sometimes it's not just about the candidate. It's about the men around him. A good leader is the one with men around him who are intelligent than him. One of the problems with the NPP today is because all our leaders are intelligent than their followers. Please, a lot of people have resigned and a lot more will resign. Now, right.
Elvis, thank you. Elvis, thank you. Honorable Inusah, the members of your party, I've seen most of them say that the departure of Alan from MPP is tantamount to the collapse of the party. Do you?
Of the MPP?
Yes.
Oh, what we can say authoritatively is that the departure of Alan from the MPP is the clearest sign yet that the MPP party is in disarray. But that clearly doesn't lead to the disintegration of the party. There's still a long way off. But for Bawumia, he's transformed from an economic messiah to an economic messer. He's messed up our economy as chairman of the Economic Management Committee or team of the MPP. And MPP has obtained and acquired the dubious title of becoming the most useless and incompetent government in the history of the country under the stewardship of Bawumia and the Akufo-Addo. And I clearly appreciate the sentiments of my nephew, brother, comrade, Elvis Botah, whose father probably is responsible for who I am today. You see, Alan's story can be told in chapters. You need to understand the pain of rejection and betrayal perpetrated against him by Nana Akufo-Addo and his lynchpins, and the ill treatment that was visited on his agents during the recently held presidential primaries of the MPP, to understand what was fueling his head. Now, this is a man who everybody agrees has been a formidable member of the MPP. In fact, MPP people are quick to say that he shouldn't have resigned. But who will not resign in circumstances of the nature that Alan Kyerematen was faced with? Why was the establishment, government machinery, whipped into supporting a candidate against a candidate or candidates who have a track record of loyalty and service to their party? Akufo-Addo won the 2007 presidential primaries at Legon on the banner of Yenim Wofritete. we know you from old, from afar.
Yeah.
We have been with you for long. And so if that banner is to be applied in these circumstances, why has there been this unholy alliance to get people who were with them from Tite and exchange them for newcomers? You need to understand. But what clearly are the immediate reasons? So these are the remote. When you used to do history, you have remote causes and immediate causes.
Yeah.
What are the immediate causes for the resignation of Alan Kyerematen from the NPP? Now, Alan Kyerematen, when he contested the elections, had serious reservations on the way and manner the constitution of the NPP and the guidelines regulating the conduct of the elections was being bastardized. 9 out of 10 of the presidential primary contestants were convinced that it was important that the presidential primaries be held at one venue, one location. They wrote a petition to the presidential committee requesting that the presidential primaries be held at one venue so as to vouch and protect its integrity and credibility. For the first time, the party turned democracy upside down. Only one person said that he was not in favor of the presidential primaries being held at a single location.
Minority carried the vote.
Minority carried the vote for that day. They ruled in favor of the minority. Now, if you don't think that the system was being whipped to supporting a candidate, look at that carefully. Then, the guidelines indicated that since it was a secret ballot process that was being employed for the selection of the 5 people, the word secret must be given its truest meaning. Nobody should know how another person has voted. What happened in Northeast? The party chairman and some party executive lined up behind the ballot box, and anybody who voted showed his vote and validated his vote by showing it to the people who were the party chairman who had taken a stance just close to the ballot box. Now, Alan Kyerematen's agent had reasons to believe, and the party guidelines, the MPP guidelines, had said that anybody who did that, his vote would be invalidated. His vote will not count.
To be annulled. Yeah.
It will be annulled.
Yeah.
So NPP, the Alan Kyerematen's agent had reasons to draw the attention of the Electoral Commission to that anomaly. He was given a sound beating. Alan Kyerematen protested. He said, what happened in the Northeast, to quote his words, were appalling, unquestionable, and disgraceful, or despicable. He filed the petition. Up to now, the MPP promised that they will investigate the matters and make their findings public. We are edging slowly towards the 4th November. Their findings are not yet public. Yeah. So, then we had Hobson Adoye clearly saying that, look, the chief of staff had pitched camp in the MPP headquarters and was doling out huge amounts of money intended to influence delegates to vote for a particular candidate. Then you had Kennedy Japan promising a what?
A showdown.
A showdown. What kind of elections? Then you have, after the elections, you have Boacha Jacko, who has since written publicly that people should not be gluten over the resignation of Alan Kyerematen, because many people have resigned already in their hearts. say that, look, the system is like that. Because we have gone to an election. The election has produced a tie. And in resolving the tie, you bastardize once again the rules. You are now constituting only 13.1% of the original delegates who voted to select the 5. You are now saying that out of the original delegates of 980 or thereabouts people, only 13.1% will participate. Well, I've never seen that. I'm for LPP. I say that culture of impunity is legendary. And they do it, and they are prepared to come up and defend it. Alan Kyerematen says, look, we are unbreaking the cycle of impunity. I must break it. You cannot have a party that we signed for in 1992 when we were going democratic. We all agreed on the values of the party. We agreed on the principles upon which the party will operate. We agreed on the ideology of the party. Assigned as a founding member of the party. The party that is existing today bears little resemblance to the party that I signed for. That party has been hijacked by a group of people from one ethnic group in the eastern region, and they control almost everything in the party. That is not the party I signed for. I'm going out of the party, but that doesn't mean that I cannot come back to the party, because Botah just spoke about UNC. That was in 1979 when UNC came out of the PFP, headed by Pawili, Akufo-Addo's uncle. The Achims had felt hard done by, and they were not prepared to move with the greater party. And then Akufo-Addo followed his uncle into the...
He became Akufo-Addo's uncle, Pawili, broke off. Formed UNC.
Yes.
And Akufo-Addo followed him and was the Deputy General Secretary
of the UNC.
So
now,
this
history is there. So that doesn't mean that Alan cannot come. I hear people talking plenty, he shouldn't have resigned. But people have resigned for a party, have come back, and have been offered the opportunity to lead the party. And they are not presidents of the country. I'm not saying that I support what Alan is doing, but I understand what Alan has done. I understand. Does it have any impact on my party as NDC? No. No. We are focused. We are preparing for election 2024. The strategies and tactics that we are employing have not changed. They have only taken account of what has happened within the NPP, but have not changed. Now, what are the ills that confront us today? Reckless mismanagement of the economy, the growing disillusionment of the youth, the incompetence of this administration, the dissipation of state resources, corruption and thievery, including monies found on the minister's breasts. I mean, just count them. Wastage in public sector, thievery, like in the case of the PDS. So the issues really have not changed. They have not changed. And we want to reset this country. We want to restore this country. We want to provide credible leadership. We don't want a situation where we will embark on another project of experimentation. You recall Nana Akufo-Addo, when he said that try me.
Yeah.
So when he invited the people of government to experiment with him, we have now seen the costly effect of experimentation. We are not. We want to put Ghana, and I believe most Ghanaians want to put Ghana in skewed hands. But Bawumia doesn't offer anything. He doesn't offer any solution to Ghana. In fact, Bawumia was a chairman of the Economic Management, and he still is, not so.
Yes.
In fact, he no longer talks about the economy. He talks about digitization. And also, and 2 days ago, last week this time, when I left your studio, I was driving home when I heard on the news that the Democracy Hub had been members who had gone on demonstration had been arrested. You were not proud. Philip London was here. Immediately I was drawn because I could feel their pain. I could feel, I was emotionally drawn to the situation. So I just moved my car to the police station to offer them my assistance, legal assistance. Why? You came into office, the total debt of Ghana was 120 billion Ghana cedis. Today, as we speak, it's 600 or about 600 billion. That doesn't even account for some of the debt held by parastatals. It doesn't account for it. Now, if you have a 72-year-old man leading the pack of thieves, 99 now, leading a pack of thieves, he's leaving an intergenerational debt and responsibility on the youth. And the youth are saying that, look, account for what you have done with the money. Account, because you see, you are going. The longest you can ever live again is probably a decade. And you will not pay for the debt. Tell us what you have used the money for. You have a country that is going through the second DDF. You have a country that is now in an intensive care unit. It is not surviving on treasury bills. Our country is not thriving. I don't know which country has developed on basis of short-term loan facilities. Treasury bills. Now, you know the interest rates that the government is offering? Over 30%. 30%. Treasury bills. And this government is just interested in sitting dark, sitting like a dark for the remaining term, 1 year, some few months. So that when it leaves, the succeeding government will deal with all the baggage. That is why there must be a day of reckoning. Why has Ishmael Yankee, he says that, look, economic crisis. Ishmael Johnson accuses government of ignoring science, leading to the economic collapse in 2022. So the science was there. And this government is the most dishonest government in the history of this country. It's not prepared to even admit that its policies are responsible for our present predicament. If you don't even engage in honest conversation about the situation that we are facing, how do we come up with solutions? How? And so, yes, in the face of all this, they still want to foist. Botah says he will resign. Akufo-Addo will foist somebody on the party. Akufo-Addo is anointing a successor. Akufo-Addo has become Emperor Bukasa of the Republic of Ghana. He has a successor. Yeah, he's a successor. This is his successor.
Are you sure he has gotten there?
I have gotten there. He's gotten there now. So
he denies it vehemently whenever asked to.
Bukasa's son is another level.
He denies it vehemently all the time.
But he will deny it all the time, just like he has denied being a clearing agent. You know, it's what you do and not what you say.
Actions, no words.
No words.
Yeah.
That should tell who you are. Yeah. And so your actions clearly do not support what you are saying. I mean, how can you say that good to be chairman of the party in the Ashanti region, which chairman knows too well that the party came out with guidelines which said that party officials, regional officials of the party officials at all levels must remain neutral and fair during the presidential primaries. Then you have a regional chairman hold a mic and he's going to the potential super delegates and asking them, so who will you vote for? And out of stupidity, they also say, Bawumia. So one would have compelled such superdelegates to disclose how they will vote for, who they will vote for. Sometimes it's sometimes yes, sometimes.
Let me tell you something. The same one to me led all regional chairmen.
Yes.
During our national executive elections to go and declare for
John Boydu.
And it was only the central regional chairman who refused to be part of it, and he openly also supported the current
Justin.
The other 15 regional chairmen under the leadership of Chairman Wuntumi actually went and raised their fingers, number one, including my own father, the Upper West regional chairman, Kambere, had to go and raise his finger. One, you know, John Boydu's ballot position was one. They said one to me. And afterwards, they took a good picture. He sang a song.
Yeah.
We can continue this way.
We can, but the party is not run that way. No party is run that way. No, where you cannot see this happening anywhere, unless the MPP and the Nana Bless Korku Alormasor. Then you will see these things happening. So what, if you don't understand why Alan has moved off from MPP, you need to look at what is happening. Is that the party that prices itself in the adherence to the rule of law? Is that party? Is that the person who says that he made his name by being a human rights advocate? Is that person who is now leading us? No, so clearly there are many things that clearly are wrong. But for me as an NDC, and I'm grateful to my cousin and nephew and friend, my everything actually, we are focused. We want to provide a leadership of trust. Trust is the basis upon which people can repose their mandate in the select group of people to rule the country on their behalf. We want to provide a government of trust. We want to provide a government that can secure or govern on the basis of the confidence that the people have reposed in it. We want to be, I mean, even while we were still in government, NDC, under His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, has it ever happened in our history? We were prepared to account to the people. So we publish a book accounting to the people. Now, democracy's house says, account to us, Mr. President, for the monies you have borrowed. The first day, they were hauled into pickups and sent to 8 cells. This is a government that doesn't want to account to anyone. And now I hear some ridiculous statements from MPP communicators saying that even the demonstration, we don't know what it represented, because they didn't present a petition. They didn't present a petition to government. Who says that the demonstrations have to present petition? And sometimes this party, MPP party, can be funny. And sometimes they are funny that you don't think that. I think it's the arrogance of power, not so. It blinds their eyes to realities. It's the arrogance of power. And people like Botah, from humble beginnings, they have never lost the true value of humility. And so even as deputy organizer of the party, he was still humble to the core and prepared to admit that certain things needed change. Most of the people in MPP have been blinded by the arrogance of power, including Nana Akufo-Addo. We are doing it. We are doing it. We are doing it. When you went on demonstration, you occupied Flagstaff House. You said that the CD was running out of the roof. The CD was 3 CD, an average of 3 CDs, 90 pesos to $1. When you went on the demonstration, today how much is it? That you think people should not go on demonstration. Fuel. The whole gallon, 4.5 liters, was 18 CDs. Today, that is the cost of a liter. Yeah. Because a liter is now 13 CDs. Yeah. A liter. But the whole gallon was 18 CDs. You said, well, the situation was... Inflation stood at 15.2%. And you said, heaven must break loose. Today, inflation is standing around 45%. Yeah. Haven't come down from 54%, 54.1%. And you said people should not demonstrate. You said that if taking loans was the reason why people were seeking opportunity to govern this country, then your 16-year-old guy or 18-year-old son could rule this country.
16.
16. At that time, the loan that you were complaining about was 120. That is from Nkrumah, when we were forgiven the loans, what remained on our loan books, up to the time His Excellency John Dramani Mahama was leaving office, was 120. John Dramani Mahama added 2 existing debts. Today, he himself has contracted his own debt. If you take 120 out of 600 billion, alone, his government alone is responsible for 480 billion. And you say the people should not demonstrate. And then, worst of all, in all these things, we see no development. We've just spoken about the dysfunctional street lights.
Yeah.
In all this,
yeah,
we are talking potholes everywhere. When I was Minister for Roads and Highways, routine maintenance was a monthly activity. I don't know the last time they did routine maintenance or periodic maintenance. Our roads have developed potholes all about the place, where contractors are not being paid. In fact, today, if you are a contractor, you want to be paid, you must meet so many people that you will lose count of the number of people that you are meeting. But there was a system. I mean, first in, first out. So I want another for this government. If we sit here to talk about them, I think that we need more hours. And I'm talking about different areas. And today I was just reading the graphic. Ghana is on course for a timber trade license. And I said, is this news? As far back as 2013, when I was Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, under the VPA, Voluntary Partnership Agreement, and the joint plan of action between Ghana and the European Union, Ghana was leading the European Union in the fulfillment of the conditions for the grant of the license. It had to take 7 or 8 years after we left office for a license flag. The forest law enforcement and governance governance and trade license. Flag, that is a flag license. It had to take 7 years. So clearly, there's something. All sectors of the economy, all institutions of state are in decay. In decay. They are no longer delivering to the expectation of the people, and they have no way of delivering to the expectation of the people. Little wonder they're just amassing wealth left, right, and center. You read stories like a private citizen is going to invest $85 million in the Lands Commission. In doing what? So another way is that the government is trying to sell public lands to a private. So and that is news. That's news. So it's somewhere. I read it somewhere. So, what is that? That doesn't mean. What does that mean? In fact, I cannot wait to see the arrival of 2024, and particularly December 2024,
right.
So that we can goodbye the MPP, and when we do form a government, hold them to account.
Right, you are still watching the morning show. This is the newspaper review segment of the show, Good Morning Africa. I'll take a few of your messages. Hi, Mr. Bless. Thank you so much for your hard work. Keep it up. Besides, it is good news for me to hear that Alan is out of the MPP for his own safety. Thank you so much for your message. Please tell Elvis Botah that his party doesn't fit him. I love his submissions. He's too honest to be in the MPP. He has to switch parties. He has to switch parties, or better still, join Alan. Kuti from Navrongo, you sent this one. Good morning, Bless. The mistake the MPP is making and don't know is that there are some people who have resigned but have not put their resignation on paper. They shouldn't deceive themselves, but wait and see the outcome of the presidential elections. Good morning. Please, I'm Michael. And and I want to buy one of the books Mr. Kwesi introduced. I think the Fight Back on your TV channel. Okay, right. So I'll text you the number to call later so that you can call and then get a copy for yourself. Kubila from the Upper East says, Elvis is an honest man. Good morning, Pan-African TV. Bless, only political. Okay, let me take time to read this one. It says, Bless, only political new fights will underscore the ramifications of Alan's resignation from the party NPP, and as Botah alluded to, the victory of Alan might not necessarily be to clinch power, but in the scheme of things to ensure that the party never comes to the corridors of power. At least Alan, as an astute politician, is minded by historical antecedents of independence. Okay, thank you so much for your message. And also this one here says, hi, good morning. Okay, the message is not so clear. Please do not call the text lines. Only send messages and I'll read them. Don't text. I beg your pardon. Please, I beg you. Right. Good morning, please. Okay. We'll talk about that later. I'm not reading this on air. Good morning to you and your team. I'm learning a lot from your panelists. We need a change in our political system. Daniel from Esikuma. Thank you, Daniel, for your message. If NPP does not take care, we'll go into opposition because the center can no longer hold. Thank you. We didn't add your name. Good morning. Bless. The mistakes the NPP is making and don't know is that there are some people who have resigned but have not put their resignation on paper. They shouldn't deceive themselves. I think I've already read this message. My name is Kubila from the Upper East region. Elvis is an honest man. I think I've read this message as well. Let me go and see the messages that you've sent via text message. This one here says, Mr. Botah is my hero of democracy. Can I have his contact? Good morning. Good morning to you. Why is Botah wasting his time in the NPP? We need him in the NDC. He's always on point. Alfred Bajina from Obuasi, you sent in this message. Right. Before we proceed to our next topic, though, which is going to be the final one, I think we have some 15 minutes left. The UPSA Law School is pleased to invite all of you watching to the launch of the first diagnostic report on Ghana's after preparedness, that is the African Continental Free Trade Area preparedness. This report was commissioned by the UPSA Law School as an empirical assessment of the state of play of Ghana's readiness to leverage the opportunities presented by the AFCFTA while minimizing any inherent potential competitive risks presented by the regime. The report was prepared by Ishmael Yamsen and Associates in collaboration with Sam Okujeto and Associates. The event comes off on Friday, 29th September, which is tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. at the West Wing of the UPSA Auditorium, and will bring together a diverse audience of policymakers, legal experts, business leaders, academics, and stakeholders interested in the economic landscape of Ghana within the context of the AFCFTA framework. Kindly visit the school, the social media platforms of the UPSA Law School, or email upsa.lawschool@upsamail.edu.gh for information on how to be a part of this. Now, away from that, there's a story captured in page 2 of the Vanguard newspaper. I see pictures of the health minister, Honorable Korku Alormasor, and he is saying, and he has admitted, that Ghanaian nurses are dumping Ghanaian hospitals for overseas, ostensibly for greener pastures. You go to the Canadian embassy, which is not too far away from here, you see scores of Ghanaians. You see a gaggle of people over there lined up, waiting for their visas to flee this country. People, I've heard the joke that now it is no longer, it has become obligatory for young people living in Ghana to move from the country and to other parts of the world, to Europe and the Americas, for greener pastures. And I see a lot of people, some of my friends have even left the country. But this mass exodus of nurses from the country to Europe is a worry. You see them in Dubai, you see them in UK, you see them in other parts of the world, and they are deserting the hospitals. Let me pick Elvis's thoughts on that. Brief thoughts, just about 5 minutes, then we proceed.
They are right. Over time, our country have proved that we are unable to support quality livelihoods. So the state spends money in training nurses and cannot keep them. Now, one thing we must know is people will argue that, oh, what about those who were enrolled on government payroll? What are they also living for? In quality human resource management, in fact, strategic HR, the success of an organization and your deployment of the innate and varied skills of people goes beyond recruiting them. The most critical HR function beyond recruitment is employee retention. Your ability to employ incentives and motivations and to create a conducive work culture and organizational citizenship behavior to encourage employees not to want to walk out of the organization is the most crucial human resource function at the organizational level. That is what the state is unable to do. You see, governance is a must-be serious business. If you cannot handle Ghana as a corporate affair, then you have no business in governance. That is why our president is an executive president, marshalling the powers of a chief executive officer of a corporate body. So when you hear corporate Ghana, it means our ability to have that kind of strategic leadership to marshal our resources, natural resources and human resources, human capital, retain them and deploy them to good use over time for dividends is what we need. That is not happening. Now, in the work of world, we have what we call labor economics. Just as there is the demand and supply for labor, profitability also becomes the motive of the one giving out labor. Massa, if CNN writes to you today to come for a job, let's be honest, if CNN writes to you today to come for a job that pays you $20,000 a month, in fact, $5,000 a month, Bless, I will not find you here next Thursday. As a matter of fact, Mr. Pratt will advise you to go. You understand? So these are realities. If you train nurses with national resources and they have to sit for 3 years, 3 years doing what? In the course of 3 years seated home without being enrolled, their families become disappointed at them and see them as being useless. We've educated you with all our resources and you cannot even buy bathing soap. You can't even buy parts. Some of these girls who have been trained for nurses cannot buy parts, especially with the current and prevailing prices of parts. They can't buy parts. Now, if you're a young man and you can afford parts for a particular girl, Charlie, she's become your girlfriend. Yes, these things are pushing our girls into doing things. It used to be Indomie and Fanta. Now it's pad.
Indomie and Fanta?
Yes, Indomie and Fanta, and you are good to go with an area girl. Now it's pad. You see where the economy has gotten to. So when you find nurses running to other countries, those countries are simply not wasting state resources to train them. But they know a country with a focus, like Ghana, will waste resources to train them, and they will come, and they just pay them better and retain them. So they are running away for greener pastures because of the kind of remunerations they have here that are not attractive. And also because they stay here. Now, look, the average 2-bedroom apartment in Accra is 2,500 per month.
Yeah. If you want everyone. Yeah.
That one where the POP really no shade that good like that, some sockets are hanging somewhere, it's 2,500. Some corner is leaking. 2,500. If you want the one well tiled with some nice bathrooms with ACs hanging in the room, you must be paying about 6,000 a month. Yeah. 2-bedroom in this Ghana.
Yeah. I believe.
How much is the rent? How much is the salary, monthly salary of a nurse? Please, as many nurses as possible should leave Ghana if they have the opportunity to leave. I think this is the only language, sad to say, that this country and this leadership will understand.
Yeah.
They should leave. Me, all the people I have helped through nurses training colleges, I am looking for opportunities for them to leave. I'm not even going to pretend about it. Else, the investment is a wasted one. So this thing calls for the nation to sit up and see how we handle the human resources we are training, not only nurses. The saddest one is even teachers. I'm telling you. If you go to some of the communities, teachers have to go and teach. At least for the health facilities, most of them have not even spread into those places. But teachers, where they have to go and teach, what they have to go through, it's embarrassing. So the nation must set up. I don't know why there's this ministry, which I consider one of the most useless, Ministry of Labor and Employment Relations. That ministry should be scrapped. It's not achieving anything. And government should be serious with the youth of this country.
Right. Thank you very much, Honorable.
Yeah, you see, all this is no news.
It's not news.
You see, human beings, what is a constant feature in the history and evolution of mankind is migration. People always move to places which provides better conditions.
Yeah.
Everywhere. That's why we are always in the constant state of movement.
Even the Fulani people you see.
Yeah, yes.
Faster they want it's no longer Mali.
Not the war. So people will naturally be drawn towards areas, countries which provide better conditions, because everybody wants to live a fulfilled life. You understand? We are not here. Are we indigenous of Accra? We are not. Elvis is from Swala.
Yeah.
Or what?
Tanasia.
From Cape to South.
Yes, yeah.
To Soya. You think I'm going to work this year?
Yes, it's the conditions. So people are always moving. People are always moving. So that is why, as a country, we have an individual responsibility to improve upon the conditions in our own countries to make it attractive for people to stay.
Yeah.
It is not, I mean, you think that anybody wants to leave the country, leave his people, his parents, his fathers, his brothers behind and go and struggle in the cold winters of Europe? No. But they can also live in the country that clearly doesn't offer opportunities.
Yeah.
So it's a choice. It's a choice. We must understand this. I mean, who doesn't know that those who are, even you are talking about people queuing up at the Canadian embassy. There are people who don't bother to queue. They just enter a truck, risk the desert, end up in Libya, and then and try to cross the Mediterranean. It has become the Mediterranean has become the biggest graveyard of humanity. In fact, 10 years ago, this day, the disaster of Lampedusa occurred, where 347 people lost their lives in a single disaster. Why did the people, crowd themselves in the boat? About 500 people crowded themselves in the boat that was designed to take only 65 people. They were trying to escape from poverty. They were looking at better opportunities. And that is human. I mean, who wants to suffer? You think that, and in this our Ghana, where a minister can have $1 million or over $1 million in her room, missing. Yeah. And then I cannot even get 3 square meals a day. What do you want to do?
I didn't know we were accompanying people into power.
To make this money.
It's painful.
Yes.
You understand what I mean?
So, and then it has even destroyed the trust in politicians. Yeah. It's not terrible. You go somewhere and they say, oh, you're a politician. So you have money in your room.
Yes.
Just destroyed. And you say nurses should stay.
They won't stay.
Where will they get even 1,000 cities to be under their belt.
And you know nursing education is expensive than even university education.
Very expensive.
Every
practical, the things you need to buy. Yeah.
Every time you are paying almost 3,000.
My niece just sent me this thing.
4,000 plus.
4,900 something.
Ah, yes. I have one on the table. And you know, aside that, now, these nurses training college have a development levy. So when you attend interview and you gain admission, you will have to go and pay 1,000 Ghana cedis or provide 10 bags of cement.
I see.
Before you even get the prospectus list. To go and pay your fee and buy your items to come.
And the minister,
an example is Krobo, Nurses Training College.
I said the minister is complaining. When they give him opportunity to buy Sputnik V vaccines, we paid our money to the supplier.
They said the money was to be Britain, has it?
Well, I don't know. That's what they always say.
Right. Our time is up. Our time is up. Thank you very much, Honorable Inusah. Thank you, Elvis Botah. It's been a pleasure. I'm sure you lot have enjoyed the conversation, especially from the messages you have sent. My name is Korku Alormasor. I sat in for Kwame Wosudan. So the Friday edition of the show will come your way tomorrow, 6 a.m. exactly. The show starts with Ivy bringing you the news. Yours sincerely will take over with other parts of the segment, and then also, of course, we'll do the newspaper review segment of the show. Do have a pleasant morning. Bye-bye.